Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Perry, the managing director here at Solvenna, and I'm joined today by a couple of my colleagues who you'll hear from in just a few minutes. I'm super excited to be here today because we're officially introducing QuickLift by Solvenna, a brand new offering that we believe will transform how teams get value from their customer data in Martech solutions. Before we dive into what QuickLift is and why it is such a great offering, let me set the stage with a quick overview of who is Solvenna. Solvenna is a US-based consulting firm with team members in more than 15 states. Our focus is simple but powerful. We help our clients unlock and maximize the value of their customer data. Everything we do, from data engineering, marketing technology, customer data platforms, analytics, and more, is centered around enabling smarter decisions, better customer experiences, and stronger business outcomes. To help ground that a bit, here's a quick visual that highlights our core offerings across our three main service lines: data, marketing, and analytics. It is because of our work in many of these areas over the past several years that exposed an opportunity for us to better assist our clients and led us to the launch of QuickLift. With that foundation in place, it's a perfect time to bring in Jason and Kirk. Together, we'll walk you through what QuickLift is, why it is so important, and how it can accelerate the impact of your customer engagement initiatives. Jason, I'll turn it over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about you and Kirk and why and what brought you to Solvenna today?
Thanks, Tim, and I appreciate the background on Solvenna. So we have been, Kirk and I, selling marketing technology since there was a category of marketing technology, starting way back in the early 2000s on email platforms. And we have spent the majority of our careers with the buyers of marketing technology in a variety of businesses, but particularly large enterprises or medium-sized businesses looking to expand their capabilities around email and other channels within the marketplace. And most recently, we've spent time selling CDPs into these same brands. And that knowledge that Kirk and I have had sitting on that side of the fence, Tim, has really given us insight into what we actually believe are some of the challenges those organizations are having in being able to not only implement those platforms, but integrate them and utilize them to generate really what everybody's looking for, which is a significant return on investment. And as I like to say in a less sort of formal way, their jobs are to sell more stuff. How do we help them do that? By activating the technologies they already own.
Awesome. Definitely want to help them sell more stuff. Love it. So let's start to explain why this, why now, to surface some of the pain, the frustrations, the insights that led us all to QuickLift. As you said, both have seen a lot of Martech programs from many different angles. What did you see that made you think we need a different model?
I think what we saw was lots of stagnation, if you will, inside of the marketing tech departments where we weren't seeing increased uses of personalization. We weren't seeing the data, even with CDPs being sort of brought in to optimize programming. We saw a lot of frustration in that. And then we saw a lot of, I want to make sure I word this properly, but I would say falling back or, reaching back into old habits of constantly sending email to the full list or other solo channel effort that wasn't necessarily integrating the bigger opportunity into the picture. And what ultimately came out of that was, as we move forward with AI across the enterprise, a lot of companies are going to get left behind on that. And if they don't improve their personalization, which has been a significant problem forever, and Kirk and I can tell you stories going back to the beginning of time with dynamic content, then those companies that aren't going to figure this out and message more effectively, whatever channel they're in, to their customer base, are going to lose. And I hate to be so direct about it, but we think there's an extinction level threat coming with companies that are going to be able to implement and utilize data effectively and companies that can't. Kirk, you want to add something to that? I know you're deep in thought on that.
Yeah, I feel like that is, and the real sad part of the story is that all of these brands, whether they're enterprise or mid-market, have made the investment in the tools to bring personalization forward, right? They've believed in the story. It's just that they've had a hard time getting the execution right. And so the companies that are winning get the execution right, and those that are trailing now already haven't. And that could have represented incomplete data sets, data not coming together in a substantial enough quantity to drive personalization, not having the data marketplace being connected or the data warehouse connected to the customer touchpoint applications. So you might not have personalization coming to your messaging. You might not have it coming to your call center or your website. And as a result, there's a broken experience across all those customer touchpoints at these companies that haven't been able to take full advantage of what they already own. And so what has made this the right time and why Solvenna is the right partner is because they have proprietary artificial intelligence assisted, large language model assisted methods to help clean up your data, to help connect the customer touch points applications to the data. And so as a result, we're able to quickly deliver quick fixes that will drive on time, on budget, and deliver the ROI we're talking about in the early sales process. We're able to help customers grab a hold of that personalization and return that they've been promised in the first place.
Terrific. A little scary from Jason with the extinction event, but agreed because this is a highly competitive, transformative time period, et cetera. So people really do need to look at it from that perspective. And Kirk calling out the disconnected data and broken experiences, all very key points to this. Let's build on that a little bit. And now let's try to make QuickLift and the QuickLift offering that we're introducing here a little bit more concrete and simple. So for folks that are just hearing about this right now, what is QuickLift in simple, non-consulting sales speak?
Well, I'll give a first swing. What it's not is an SI solution to come in and do technical integrations for folks. What we really want to do is work with companies to identify places in their current marketing programs that are falling short in delivering the right experiences. The way we do that is we're measuring personalization impact across all the major channels that an organization would use to go to market. We're going to propose coming into those companies and identifying one or two areas of which we can do a quick assessment, which is where the quick comes from, on how we can improve the metrics in that particular category for them. And it may be something as simple as a program, an email campaign, an SEO campaign, something where they're not utilizing the data to get to that level. And as Kirk described, using our proprietary AI enablement, we're going to be able to integrate and implement a very quick solution to that particular program that they're running to show lift in ROI rather quickly for them in a way that they've not been able to do before. And the goal is to be able to do this from soup to nuts in about 120 days. And that is something that can then provide value, not just to the program itself, but across the organization to show them that there is a possibility to take advantage of the technology they already own in a way that is not being utilized today.
Was that QuickLift is the idea of us looking and monitoring through a vast set of third-party data, brands that we believe would be good fits against their customer cohorts. And when we see from the outside looking in potential opportunity to improve personalization and therefore effectiveness of particular channels, we're going to reach out to a brand's C-level, the individuals in a company that are responsible for driving the sales of more. And so less executional at first and much more macro picture about driving increased sales revenue. And so what the QuickLift is the idea of identifying those areas where we believe we can help and then putting together a program. Again, because of these AI methods that exist here at Solvenna, we're able to quickly identify what it is that we're going to solve for, whether it's data transformation, data integration, get that done in 60 days, and then monitor those results for another 30 so that we're ensuring that we're delivering what we've promised, right? We're going to deliver on time, on budget, and with the results that we're looking to achieve, or we had talked about achieving in the first place, things that are, or conditions that made it very difficult for an organization to do this themselves, we're able to help augment the team to get the things done that often in many cases the customer knew they needed to do. And so we're helping them realize this potential of the system that they put together in the first place.
And what I think is critical, Tim, in all of this is none of this works without Solvenna, because Solvenna has the depth of experience and the capability to execute on the deliverable that Kirk just described, but also the ability to be agnostic in the marketplace so that we can go to a wide variety of what I call Frankentechs, marketing tech platforms that are just sort of cobbled together over the years with good intent, right? With great ideas from the brands to be able to take advantage of all those technologies. But as we all know, they typically don't mesh well together, or they never fully realize the option. And so Solvenna, which you can speak to, is so perfectly positioned because of the vast experience that you've had in reaching across all of these different environments.
Yeah, great point. I mean, the Frankentech is certainly out there, right? I mean, a lot of these Martech stacks cobbled together, grown over for the younger companies, the past 5, 10 years, or some of these enterprise legacy companies, tech stacks that have grown over the past 30, 40 years, and they are cobbled together. And yes, our team has spanned the gamut across a wide variety of different technologies. We are agnostic to a lot of the different technologies, so we can support that. To tie that back into the QuickLift solution, we are talking about using the tech that companies already have, right? We're using what brands already own. We're not proposing they buy a new technology out of the gate or anything like that. So what does that look like in practice from the QuickLift program itself?
There's two sides to this. There's the technical integration and those issues we've just covered. And then I think there's the operation of a business, right? And in these sort of executive suites and in these marketing teams, there's a lot of structure around customer ownership. Like, who owns the customer? Does the CMO own it? Is there a chief customer officer who owns it? Where do the CFO and CEO fit into this? So from a QuickLift perspective, it's really important that we're talking to everyone, Tim, that is involved in the decision tree at these organizations, primarily because typically KPIs don't align. I mean, let's all be honest. Like, if you're sitting in a certain chair in an organization or even in the marketing department and you've got to get the campaigns out by 6 p.m. today, that's a very different measurable than if you're looking at performance metrics, revenue, and even from the CFO's perspective, the cost that continues to be stunk into your technology. So we intend to talk to everybody inside of the senior leadership sphere, because I think everybody has an impact on what's happening with the output of the programs. I don't think it's an isolated thing that just sits into the marketing tech teams. I think it involves all of the departments at the company that would have either a direct influence or at least tertiary influence on how the programs are being implemented. So Kirk can add a little more color on how we intend to do that, but I think it's important to set the bar that if you're a C-suite officer in a company that would benefit from this, you probably play a role somehow in the current structure of your organization and the opportunity to improve its performance.
That's right, Jason. And really what this boils down to, we're there to identify low-hanging fruit, to help you understand, here is where we can get you the quickest lift with the least amount of effort. So we're not there to create a customer 360. In some cases, let's say that you had great intent, you got yourself a CDP, it's not delivering the returns you're looking for. You don't have next best product recommendations occurring. You don't have churn mitigation. In the early days of data warehousing and CDP, the goal was customer 360, but to solve those use cases, you don't necessarily need customer 360. You might be able to do customer 90, pulling in browse data plus past purchase history, some merchandise rules, and some inventory, and you might be able to get that up and running quickly. And that's really the idea. It's not everybody needs that solution, but identifying the solutions that we can get into market quickly to build momentum, to build trust with the organization. That's what we're there to do, to help augment the resource limitations of stretched thin tech and marketing departments that keep customers from starting a project because they can't solve everything they often end up not solving anything. And we're here to help move that forward, get some momentum going, and start to realize some of the gains that were promised when these best-in-class tech stacks that became Franken-Techs to get the promise of that return that was initially sought when the purchase was made.
Yeah. For the casual viewer here, Solvenna can certainly separately help with the customer 360, but the QuickLift value prop here that's focused is a little bit of a different, like you said, it's looking at how do we make quick improvements using what they currently have and going after a boil the ocean sort of thing of customer 360 isn't necessarily needed in most of those cases. It could be that customer 90 or even less, right? Let's get pretty strategic about it and just look at what data is really needed to make an impact in the near term here. You kind of touched on at the end there, and I'll ask this to either of you. At the end, Kirk, you were talking about some of the value and some of the investments people have made. Maybe this ties into the next question of just why do we think the model like QuickLift is especially needed right now for companies?
Well, I think Jason touched on it earlier when he talked about the idea of the large enterprise companies. They do have the resources necessary to get everything right. And, that leaves a very large segment. That mid-market is becoming bigger in the sense of those that are falling behind in personalization. And the technologies are there, right? Most of the mid-market has real-time site analytics, so they can gather that data. They have call centers, they have loyalty programs, they have messaging platforms that cover all the major channels. And in many cases, they have a CDP that is there, but not delivering the results they're looking for. And so what makes now such a good time is not only the fact that all this data is there, and it really just needs to be strategically put into the data warehouse, but with the advent of large language models and the proprietary methods that Solvenna has developed, data transformation and application integration is faster than ever before, and therefore it's less expensive than ever before, and it's equally as effective in terms of driving the potential for these best-in-class stacks that have been put together over the years. And so with these large language models, we're now entering a new time when it isn't overly complicated to get the vision realized that you initially had when you made these purchases. And that's what makes this an exciting time and an exciting partnership with Solvenna.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick anecdote. I was talking to a marketing leader who sits on top of the tech at a Fortune 50 brand and walking him through QuickLift. And his reaction was, love it. It's great. It's something that would even benefit us, except for the fact that when I have a big problem, I have a big budget that I can throw dollars at and fix that problem with larger consultancy. And so the idea of QuickLift wasn't just to be able to fix the problem, which was outlined here. It's been discussed on this video, but also to make it affordable and approachable for companies that just can't throw big money at a big problem. So we can start at an entry point where somebody can feel the impact of uplift to a program that's important to them with not having to feel like it's going to cost them as much or more than the technology license was out of the gate. And I think that's what's really appealing to this, because if you're a CEO or a CFO or the CMO and you're trying to figure out how you can optimize performance, it's probably a little scary right now of where to go do that, right? Because, it's first identifying the problem and then being able to actualize a solution. So as we dive into this, Tim, what is really a simple problem with a simple solution actually has a lot of layers to it because of the problems that this problem itself, the macro problem, which is the inability to utilize the technology that you own in a way that's driving the return you need. Inside of that, you start peeling back the layers, and there's a whole bunch of things inside of an organization that impact that. We just want to start at a place that provides you with a quick result and gives you something to feed on as a starting point.
Absolutely. Yeah, great points. And when we talk about why is QuickLift especially needed right now? I mean, you guys hit on so many great points there. A big part of that, as you threaded in there, is people have made big investments. They have spent big money for different things over the past 5-10 years. And a lot of organizations just aren't seeing that return right now. It's not being realized. And as they're doing that, there's the myriad of reasons for that: customer data challenges, resource turnover during this time period, conflicts in technology stack, back to the Frankentech, et cetera. Hey, now jumping into it and trying to focus on some of those quick optimization pieces to really show that this stack that they have already invested in really can get you a better return than they're experiencing today. And that's stuff that we've been helping people with collectively for a long time now. And now we're putting more of a methodology, using some more of the advanced technologies around AI to help facilitate that process and make it more beneficial in a quicker period of time, hence the QuickLift.
We weren't too creative with the name here, but we wanted to just sort of say what it is in terms of the program. And then back to where we started with the experience that Kirk and I've had for decades selling to technology in, that sales process is often challenging. And I think companies are typically looking for a one size fits all solution to whatever the problem was they defined at the time. And we've also got a situation where a lot of times the people that are in seat now weren't the people who purchased the product.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of institutional knowledge that doesn't get passed along, and that leads to incomplete usage in the marketplace. So being able to take that experience and frankly combine it with Solvenna's depth of data and analytics experience, it's really unique for this offering because it's a spot that isn't being focused on. And I think that's what makes this a little bit different too.
One area I also think that sort of sets us into a unique spot in the market is that with the explosion of technologies, there's an increasing degree of specialization within the enterprise at the brand. And so IT is more and more consumed with things like security and data management, right? And marketing is consumed with channel execution. And at the mid-market, there isn't a lot of room for strategy and marketing technology expertise and excellence. And so as a result, some of these priorities get downlisted. And the C-suite is essentially responsible for the outcome of all these departments, which is selling more product. And so there's a disconnect in between, in many cases, those focused on delivering marketing channel excellence and IT excellence. And so what they need is a group like ours that comes in, has the fingers on keys to quickly realize where the opportunity is, strategize how to deliver it most economically as possible, both in terms of economically, in terms of funds, yes, but in terms of effort, the data required to deliver the outcome desired, and then to actually execute it. And so the situation that exists in many brands is political, with differing groups having different priorities, and we can help smooth all of that over, solve those problems, and get the results that make everybody happy. IT is happy with the way that we conduct ourselves within the business. Marketing is happy because they're getting improved results from their platforms. And the C-suite is happy because they are driving the sales of more product while working and activating what they already own to actually benefit that financial outcome. The CFO is one of the biggest proponents of QuickLift because they're writing those checks for those technologies on an annual basis, and they want to see the full return, not partial return.
Great point. So if you are a leader watching this and thinking, hey, we've invested a ton and aren't seeing the value that we hoped for, whether it's the CFO, CMO, or anybody else in the C-suite, well, other than calling us, what's the first step you would suggest they take?
Well, I think they need to align on the initiatives that they're trying to accomplish, or at least what the goals are. I mean, inside of those organizations, and this is something that Kirk and I have experienced for quite some time. I mean, I remember sitting in some meetings with the buyer or the purchasing committee made up of different constituents from the different departments, watching them argue with one another over cost, return, programs, things of that nature. So I think one of the big things that they have to consider is, what are the KPIs? Like, what is the company trying to do? So earlier I said something about sell more stuff. I think they all have to start someplace with a common North Star that everybody's working towards. And then Kirk mentioned something earlier that I think is worth noting. The silos that take place within the different channels within the marketing departments also become a problem, because the person responsible for email is doing their thing the best that they think that they're doing it. typically not coordinating with the folks working on search or other digital channels, right? And particularly the expenses being paid to the paid channels. And it's leaving the consumers or the recipients sort of confused about what the brand message is. So CMOs have to take a look at their organization and think about how they can break down the silos. And that was the promise of CDPs, right? That you'd be able to take in this data and organize it across channels to be able to optimize the performance. But in practice, that hasn't really happened. So I think the two big things are organizational alignment around what they want to do with the marketing or the outreach programs, and then the deconstruction of this siloed approach that they have right now. And again, back to what both of you have said, the promise, I think, of CDP selling from a platform side had been the idea of customer 360, because that's how we were told to sell it by our product leaders. Go in and tell them that the marketing department now can pull in all this data and then they can make really awesome segmentations out of it. And the reality of it is, whether you said it's customer 90 or customer 56, like there are key data points that you can operate from that can allow you to move forward pretty aggressively and pretty successfully, but you need to be able to take that into account. So when you're looking at your organization, I think everybody's got to start looking at it from a much larger macro view, Tim, than the micro view that we often work in our own narrow environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think what makes this so exciting right now, and actually a very pleasurable job, is we are now truly helping customers realize the promise of their vision and their investment, right? So it's not like we're selling something that we have that we're going to forcibly fit into an environment. It's actually quite the opposite. We're going to brands that know they need to do better. They have limited budgets. They don't have the time or resources to do a new implementation. So we're really, truly coming there to strategically help companies improve their situation. And that's an exciting thing to be doing at a time when it's so possible to deliver that economically. And at the same time, if you're listening to this and you're an excellent strategist or you're an excellent implementer of CDP or marketing personalization related technologies, we're the kind of company you want to work with, right? Because we are not simply showing up at companies saying, hey, here's what we do. How do you think we could apply to your business? How could we help you? Instead, we come with an outside in perspective of how we can help you resolve a lot of the internal, perhaps political or technical limitation or budget related constraints you might be under. We're solving those problems. And that's exciting.
And again, this idea that we're agnostic is really excellent because we don't have a platform point of view. We have a customer focused solution point of view. And in a lot of cases, if you're either repping a technology or you're exclusive to a technology, you've got to fit this into that hole. That peg has to fit into that hole. Here at Solvenna, and I'll say this with our co-founder and managing partner, we kind of don't care. What we care about is solving the problem for you. And that is really important and critical because we don't have any ulterior motive to be pushing a particular technology or a particular solution to someone. The solution that we're really focused on is creating that uplift in your program so you can successfully take advantage of what you've already paid for.
Yeah, those are awesome perspectives. Loved it from both sides. Because I mean, going all the way back to the very beginning, that's what led us to this whole QuickLift thing. Like you said, Kirk, it's extremely exciting, empowering, all of it right now, because we have seen a lot of companies invest these big investments into these technologies, these stacks, into these solutions, and they're just not realizing the benefits. And all of us have already seen and been helping other companies get benefit out of those tech stacks to get them closer to the ROI that they expected. And now we're formalizing that methodology, that approach, and utilizing the newest of technology to support that on the back end, just from an AI perspective, not selling you another tech to add into the Franken tech, but to leverage what people already have, optimize it, and get that return that they were looking for. So great comments from both of you. Yes, it's extremely exciting. Maybe the last thing just to close on is, what's the best way for someone to explore whether QuickLift makes sense for their organization?
Well, let's talk, right? I mean, I think the best way to do it is to have a conversation with any of us here or any of the great people that are part of Solvenna about where your program is now, what your challenges are, and what you'd like to achieve. And I think those conversations can lead to us understanding how we can help you and developing a pathway forward. But unless you guys disagree, I think the easiest thing to do is have a conversation with us, because I don't think this problem is unique to someone else. I think a lot of this is happening in a lot of organizations that are watching this today. And the problems we described probably sound pretty familiar.
Yeah, this is not specific to one industry, one company type. This is a very common problem. And yeah, starting with a conversation, discovery, just learning what each person's and company's unique challenges are. We've seen a lot of them and can use the QuickLift methodology to apply to it to now show some of the lift that can be realized in a short period of time.
Tim, let me ask you a question. I mean, you've been sitting on the consultancy agency side of this for some time. We came from the platform side. I think what brought us all together was this common recognition of this problem, the problem statement. What are you seeing in the marketplace? You're in front of a lot of clients. Is this something that resonates?
Absolutely. Yes. We're here, we're launching it. And circle back to a lot of the things that we've all talked about in pieces here throughout this session. Absolutely, this resonates. This is the time. Why people have made those investments. They're not seeing the return that they expected. There's been a lot of over-promising that's happened in the past 10, 15 years from the tech side as to this thing will make coffee and do everything that you ever wanted, that type of thing. Sometimes the technology wasn't meant to solve all of the problems that you think you're purchasing for. And candidly, the customer 360 promise is maybe a little bit of an overshot where, hey, again, you don't need to focus on that as much and try to boil the ocean. And so when people do those two things together, they're buying technology thinking that it's going to solve any problem that they have. And they're overshooting from an expectations perspective that, hey, we have to have everything perfect, every I dotted T crossed. Those two expectation pieces set a pretty high bar that's hard to meet. And so where we come in, utilizing the QuickLift methodology, is looking at, okay, what do you now have in place? And how do we identify the best opportunity areas using our methodology and the AI enablement to actually see, okay, these are the most impactful, potentially lowest hanging fruit, but with a biggest return on investment or just return back to the customer experience to deliver a better overall experience.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. I love it. And I just wanted to add a couple other thoughts for you guys. I think companies spend a lot of money, good money after bad, on trying to integrate and get solutions completed. And what we're asking for is an opportunity to come in quickly, create the lift, and determine from there where we go. This isn't about never-ending consultancy projects that, end up breaking the bank too. And I think that would be appealing to our CFO friends.
Yeah, great point to that. Last thing, maybe in wrap up here, just one more point about Solvenna, just to piggyback on that, is our main mantra here at Solvenna is we care more. And how we want to be able to show people through like an initiative like QuickLift is showing that we care as much about your business and your business outcomes as you do. And as we all talked about, the excitement of this QuickLift program is that we see that there is a true opportunity to get a better lift quickly, but through this process and be able to benefit your organizations. So with that, Jason, Kirk, any other closing statements?
I just would tell you that we're thrilled to be part of Solvenna. We think it's an excellent organization, and that the QuickLift program, being part of this organization, is really exciting for us. And we can't wait to meet more people and talk about this more.
Agreed. Truly exciting. And for anybody viewing this, yes, please reach out to Jason and Kirk. Amazing backgrounds, great benefit to this Solvenna solution. QuickLift by Solvenna. We're super excited for this as we enter into 2026.